Meeting will please come to order. The regular meeting of your Caroline County Planning Commission for March 28th, 2024 is now open. I'll invite everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, on behalf of the Planning Commission and staff, I would like to offer condolences to Mr. Purcell Minor for the very recent loss of his brother. So, Purcell, our thoughts and prayers do go with you, my friend. Let's see, approval of the minutes. There are no minutes to be approved at this time. We will move into unfinished business. Any unfinished business?
Mr. Chair, yes, there is some unfinished business. Case R, or proffer amendment.
I'm sorry, excuse me just 1 second. There is something I omitted to do, so just bear with me. By way of introduction, to my far left is Mr. Purcell Minor, representing the Mattaponi District. To my left is Dr. Carol Horton of Port Royal. To my immediate right is Mr. J.D. Young, the Vice Chair and representing Reedy Church. To his right is Mr. George Weber, representing Madison. On the far right is Mr. Richard Williams, representing Western Carolina. We have Mr. Leon Hughes, our Director of Planning and Community Development, Mr. Craig Pennington, our County Planner, Mr. Chris McKenzie, our County Attorney, and Mr. John Voigt, our IT Specialist, who is keeping us all online. I apologize for that omission. Mr. Hughes, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The unfinished business is RZ03-2023. It's a proffer amendment request of Carmel Church Station North LLC and ADP Carmel Church Data Hub LLC, the applicant. You had a special meeting last week, and at that meeting, you deferred the vote on this case until tonight. The applicant, as a result of the special meeting, heard some concerns about the access road into the property, and the applicant wanted to will amend their proffers between now and the board to make the language clear that there won't be any additional access along that road from the land bay A. And so, Grayfield. And I'll just show you what the language that they want to add to make that amendment. So can you pull up the changes? Yeah. No, it's there. You need to. So thank you. So as you can see, the language in red there is clarifying language. It says the private drive shown in the special district in the aforementioned GDP should only be used for permanent access to the special district and not for permanent access to other portions of the land bay. So they are adding that language to clarify, I think, that there won't be any additional access. Any questions?
Does the wordage in that, sir, restricted to only use by ADP in the overall structure of the road usage?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, anyone else have a question? There being no further questions, Mr. Hughes, thank you. All right, commissioners, we have discussed this ad nauseum, and I think we have pretty well beaten this mule to death. All we have to do is bury him now. And by burying, I think it's time that we have a motion and a vote on this matter. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion, sir. I'd make a motion that we forward this to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval as now discussed. Meaning I was concerned about that, an entranceway, but now I think that answers the question that I was concerned about. So I would still like to make that motion as changed. Send it on with a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, if we could modify it and as also include the title of it, RZ 032023 for the record.
Thank you.
That is the item that we're doing now. Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Mr. Williams and Mr. Young to recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors with the on-record understanding of the future proffered change regarding the private use roadway. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. Next on the agenda are public hearings.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is a public hearing for a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan to define and establish a planned innovation, research and technology development area with the expansion of the Carmel Church growth area. The land use map amendment proposes the expansion of the Carmel Church growth area with the inclusion of an area designated as PERT, west of the current boundary along Jericho Road, Route 658. This potential expansion is the result of a rezoning application that was filed for development of approximately 900 acres for data center uses. The area being developed, or the area being considered, includes 31 parcels containing 1,661 acres. This includes parcels included in the proposed rezoning and several parcels not included in the rezoning. There was a request by some landowners to have their property included in the proposed PERT area. So their parcels are also within this boundary. This image shows the current boundary of the Carmel Church growth area outlined in yellow and the area of the proposed expansion outlined in red. The blue areas represent the areas that were removed from consideration and that were part of the original proposal for expansion. In March of 2023, the Planning Commission recommended that the Carmel Church growth area not be expanded. And in June of 2023, the Board of Supervisors voted not to expand the Carmel Church growth area. In September, the board sent this item back to the Planning Commission to consider a smaller area for possible expansion. At the end of 2023, with an affirmative recommendation from the Planning Commission, there were two areas designated with a PERT land use designation, one in the Carmel Church growth area and the other along Route 606. These areas were designated because of the inventory of large tracts of land and the sparsely populated areas, and that they are in close proximity to public utilities, water, sewer, electric. The area proposed for expansion tonight, the Carmel Church growth area, will require the extension of infrastructure to support the proposed use. In conjunction with adopting of the land use designations, The board also adopted a PERT zoning classification that establishes permitted uses, special uses, submission requirements, bulk architectural development requirements within the PERT area. And these items were developed to help further mitigate impacts of PERT development in those areas. Since this matter was referred back to the commission held a work session, has gone on site visits, and there was a community meeting on the question. During the work session, the commission discussed the adopted Carmel Church growth area plan and the 6 sections of the plan: community design, land use, future land use, resource protection, public facilities, economic development, and transportation. The commission also discussed that the plan acknowledges that growth will occur in the Carmel Church growth area. And also the plan recognizes the need to protect environmentally sensitive waterways by limiting development adjacent to the North Danner River. Comprehensive plans are intended to be living documents and may and sometimes should be amended to adapt to a community's evolution, and the amendments should be organic and in concert with the evolution of the community. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, you have any questions of Mr. Hughes? Well, Mr. Hughes, let me ask you this, sir. We're still faced with the utilities issue, that is water and sewer. And if I recall correctly, during our work sessions, the figure of $13.5 million to extend water and sewer into this area, and specifically for one site, was going to be paid for by the developer initially. Is my memory somewhat correct?
As a part of the rezoning, the developer had committed to extending the water and sewer. Yes, sir.
All right, sir. And in essence, wouldn't that be a loan from the developer to the county to pay for the extension? In other words, wouldn't a developer expect a reduction in their tax rate further down the road as compensation for that? I've seen that in other developments where the developer is subsequently compensated by means of a reduction in tax rate. So to me, what that means is that every person in this room who is a county resident and every other county resident are going to wind up footing the bill for that because it comes out of our tax dollar. And that's just the way that I'm looking at it on one side of the issue. Another thing that strikes me is that the areas in blue that have now been withdrawn, can you advise us why they were withdrawn?
Well, when the board sent the matter back to the commission, they sent it back to consider a smaller area. And so those areas were removed to reduce the impact or the size of a potential PERT area out there.
And here again, if utilities were extended into that area, subsequently that could be reconsidered and those areas possibly developed.
Well, I think if utilities were extended in that area for that developer, it would essentially be a private line, and it would be for that development only. It wouldn't be extended to allow additional development to tap that line.
All right, sir. Now, I know one attractant to this property was the 500 kilovolt line running through it. Do we have any information from Dominion Energy that someone developing a data center would be able to tap into that line without an exorbitant cost? What would Dominion Energy have to do in order for someone to tap that line for 230 kV?
So the 500 kV line would not be tapped. So in order to serve this property with electricity to support data centers, then there would have to be an extension of a 230 line to the property. And in conversations with Dominion to serve their ultimate build out, that line, there would have to be a line from the south that would have to run approximately 26 miles, and they'd have to be a line from the north, and then they would ultimately have to extend the line from the east to support the ultimate build out. Dominion does not tap 500 kV lines. Those are purely transmission lines.
Do we have any feedback from Dominion as to whether that's something that they would like to do, or, yeah, I'm sure that's going to be quite costly for Dominion Electric.
So the conversation we had with Dominion was that at this point, they are aware of the project, and because of some requirements that applicants have to meet, then they go into more extensive studies of the area. And at this point, they have not taken the next step to go into extensive research. They have acknowledged that those lines could potentially be extended to that property, but they have not done significant design work to actually do that.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all that I have. Any other commissioners have a question?
The water. Yeah.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Yes, sir.
On the water. I just want to circle back to it. We're talking about a comp plan amendment, and you're asking, if you designate this area as a PERT. And one thing that I think, Mr. Chair, you're asking about is, how do we generally deal with extending utilities to these areas if we're designating them as a potential PERT area? And what we've done in the past and what I would expect in the future would be a performance agreement with a potential developer. And you were alluding to this, but I just kind of want to clarify for the commission, and those are subject to negotiation, so they might look different for different applicants. But what the county has historically done is the applicant, under that performance agreement, the applicant agrees to front the cost to extend the utilities to their site. And then they recover those costs from the county in the form of a grant that is generated from the difference between the amount of taxes the county's getting from the property before it was developed and the increase in taxes that the county gets from the property after it's developed. So the county would repay the value of that infrastructure to the applicant by giving them as a rebate a percentage of that delta between the kind of the baseline tax and what the property's worth as improved, if that makes sense. So that is historically how the county has incentivized development with a performance agreement like that.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm somewhat clarified on that.
Yeah.
And believe me, I can be wrong. Just ask my wife. I'm wrong every day.
No, and it is a tax. You are using tax money to repay for that infrastructure, which eventually is integrated into the county's system. But the important thing is it's not a reduction in the tax rate or something like that.
Right. Yes.
They're using that increase in value. So say the property as ag land is worth $100, and you get, taxes off $100, and then as built out as a big industrial park, it's worth $1,000, and you get more taxes off that. The difference between 100 and whatever the new tax rate is at 1,000, the tax coming to the county at 1,000, that's what you use to repay under those performance agreements that we've done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. Hughes, got a question. Back in the, had we overgrowth the eastern part of our common church area, the growth that we need to expand to the west side, had we, had we outgrown the east side of the growth area of common church?
No, and we haven't.
Okay, thank you.
While we're in that area, Ms. Hughes, this is outside of the growth area that is projected pretty much from Route 1 going east to, what is it, 301, I believe it is, and sites north, which is where it's preferable or preferred by the county for our growth to go, even if within that somewhat corridor.
Well, to be clear, every place within that yellow boundary is the growth area.
Yes, sir.
So I think what you're speaking of, the current development pattern right now in the Carmel Church area is development is occurring along the Route 207, especially industrial commercial development is occurring along the 207 corridor on the south side, as the plan identifies that it should. And at the end of 2023, when the board adopted this hatched area here, they identified this area as suitable for PERT uses, this hatched area in here. And so right now, as you stated, Mr. Chair, the growth is occurring along the 207 corridor on the south side and here. I mean, that's evident by a number of, new projects that have occurred. It's evident by the application you dealt with tonight, which is at the interchange, pretty much in this area. It's further evidenced by a later discussion we'll have about potential, comp plan amendment in this area here. So, in accordance with the plan, as you see it, growth is occurring along this corridor here, the Route 207 corridor.
All right, sir, and this is not an issue that we're going to be voting on tonight, is that correct? Or are we?
You're going to be voting on this comp plan amendment tonight, yes, sir.
Okay.
This is a public hearing to determine whether or not you're going to recommend that this area out here, the western area,
Right.
be designated as appropriate for PERT with the expansion of the growth area.
All right, sir. I thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Ward.
Mr. Hughes, on this map right here, can you point out for me and others on 207 where our water treatment plant is on this map?
So the water treatment plant is generally in this area.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Weaver?
I have real concerns in the mere fact that these are only like colored crayons, okay? Now, I did a quickie here. The original PERT area was 2,896 acres.
Can I just
sorry, go ahead.
can I just make one comment? I think we need to open the public hearing,
Okay. Take a step.
close the hearing, then we can bring it up on motion and discussion,
Okay.
and we'll take all points on that, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Pennington, if you would read the protocol for the public hearing, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of a public hearing is for the Caroline County Planning Commission to listen carefully to the verbal expression, position, and opinion from citizens of Caroline County. Public hearings are not question and answer sessions or debates, and all statements should be addressed to the chair. When members of the public offer comment, they need to clearly state their name, voting district prior to making their comments. Persons speaking at public hearings are respectfully requested to keep comments brief, not to exceed 3 minutes, and to address only those issues pertinent to the matters advertised for public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Please come forward, state your name, your voting district, please.
Good evening. My name is Rory Smith. I live in the Reedy Church voting district, basically all my life. Mr. Chair, I would just like to say thank you guys for all the work that you do. But on the expansion of the growth area, well, one other thing, I did serve on the committee that put this plan into action back in 2007. And as I stated the last time I spoke, there is no plan to extend water and sewer up Jericho Road, ever, until the next plan is written for 2060 or whatever that might be. Now, with the approval of the expansion of the growth area, water and sewer will come up Jericho Road, benefiting those residents, which right now, we don't have any water and sewer. So on that note, I would just like to say, think carefully on your decisions. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Corinne Dixon, and I live in Beaver Dam off of 601 and 738. Last night, as you may be aware from listening to NPR, reading on the newspaper, Hanover County unanimously accepted the plan from Tract to put in a 1,233-acre data center with 30 buildings, of which 27 of them are 110 feet tall, and 3 of them are limited to 75 feet tall. From what I understand tonight, sir, you are trying to change your comprehensive plan to allow Tract, is that the company in question, to put in a similar data center similar to the one they just approved in Hanover County. The one they approved is 14 miles from my house to the east. This one would be about 15 miles to the west of my house. And I would be stuck between 2 data centers. I urge you to defer this and think it through really hard, what you're about to do to your citizens, because this is going to be a very massive project. And I ask you not to rush into it. Thank you for your attention in this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Benita Turner.
Ma'am, would you pull the mic down, please?
Yes, Benita Turner, Reedy District. I have a petition that's been signed by 120 citizens in support of this comprehensive plan amendment. And it reads, "We, the undersigned residents of Caroline County, urge our County Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors to support the proposed amendment to the 2030 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map of Caroline County to create a planned innovation, research, and technology area along Jericho Road." This vital amendment to the comp plan will create significant economic advantages for the county and its citizens, and will facilitate technological advancements that will enable our community to actively participate in purposeful and planned growth. Importantly, the amendment to the comp plan to create a PERT along Jericho Road will provide direct and indirect growth and services for the residents of Jericho Road. Specifically, some of the direct benefits to Jericho Road residents include expansion of public water and sewer lines, road improvements, and positive tax revenues, and future economic growth that benefits the entire county. Currently, there are no provisions in the comp plan for public water and sewer lines along Jericho Road, and residents are dependent upon wells and alternative septic systems. As our world becomes increasingly reliant on technology, it is essential that our community keeps pace with these advancements to remain competitive and vibrant. By supporting growth along Jericho Road and welcoming digital age ideas to our area, we can position ourselves to seize economic opportunities and benefits associated with technological innovation. We don't want to be left behind the growth curve. By embracing this amendment to the comp plan along Jericho Road, we are affirming our commitment to the prosperity and development of our county and ensuring our future generations have access to opportunities afforded by the digital age. We call upon our Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors to prioritize the comp plan amendment to create a paired area along Jericho Road and to continue to actively involve citizens in the decision-making process. Together, let us shape a future that is inclusive, forward-thinking, and prosperous for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. And just for the record, we are in receipt of your petition.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Francine Keys, and I live in the Reedy Church District. Tonight, I'll be reading a letter on behalf of my neighbor, Cameron Woods. He's unable to be present tonight. It says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Young. Due to a prior commitment, I regret I am unable to attend the Planning Commission meeting. However, I am aware the commission has on its agenda a referral from the Board of Supervisors to discuss alternative actions, options, and a schedule for developing recommendations to be presented to the Board of Supervisors to amend the Carmel Church Community Plan and future land use map to include a planned innovative research and technology park zone. I'm aware the proposal for such a zone is located west of US Route 1 Carmel Church along the southern line of Route 658 Jericho Road on the North Anna River. As a resident and landowner of the Reedy Church District and having spent all my childhood and adult life on the North Anna River, I can testify until the creation of Lake Anna and the North Anna Nuclear Power Plant in 1968, the North Anna River was basically poisoned by tailings from early mining and reckless farming and forestry activities in Louisa, Spotsylvania, Caroline, and Hanover counties. With the advent of Lake Anna and the North Anna nuclear power plant, which acts as a giant BMP, the river came alive with wood ducks, teal, mallards, herons, and other species, all of which were never on the river prior to Lake Anna. Further, we began to catch record-sized smallmouth bass and silver perch, which also were scarce or non-existent prior to Lake Anna. My point being, good, clean, and environmentally responsible industrial development can actually serve to enhance the environment while providing much-needed high-paying jobs with good benefits for our citizens. This type of high-tech growth also provides a much-needed industry tax base to help offset the cost of services we must provide for our residential development whose residents have to go outside our county to find employment. A well-planned and environmentally responsible technology industry base will go a long way toward improving the tax base in Caroline and funding the services needed and demanded by our residential sector. In addition, I have firsthand knowledge our neighboring jurisdictions are already ahead of Caroline and including large acreage tracts in their land use plan for technology-based industry and are even now entertaining zoning applications for such. This is a prime example of they build it, they get the tax base, and we get the bedrooms. I encourage you, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors to put your best efforts forward to develop a plan to encourage good, clean, and environmentally responsible industry to locate in Caroline. Such a plan, I believe, if enacted, will assist in relieving part of the real estate and personal property tax pressure on our farmers and foresters. Move forward now to make Caroline County a competitor in this growing market. Regards, Cameron B. Wood, registered voter, Reedy Church District, certified general real estate appraiser. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Mark Atkinson. I'm from Western Caroline. I've addressed this body before. You may recall I'm the one who said that I was an urban refugee, having lived in Long Island, New York when it was farm country, and in northeastern Illinois before it was a big suburb of Chicago. And my wife and I moved here 25 years ago, choosing Caroline County because of the words rural preservation. In Hanover County, and I could be wrong about this, I really don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I believe that in Hanover County and in most of the other counties, rural property is designated agricultural zoning. But we saw that Caroline went further than that. Caroline County had rural preservation. That word preservation has a meaning. And I don't know, frankly, if it was intended, but a lot of people, like my wife and I, chose to live in Caroline County believing a promise, what we perceived as a promise, that a rural way of life was being preserved here. I have to say I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I've heard the people that just came prior to me talking about their desire for economic prosperity, for things as simple as having a sewer and public water. And I sure think that citizens that need that should have access to it. The lady who spoke just prior to me talked about clean energy and good jobs. And that's something that I haven't heard proof of in any of the discussions. In fact, just the opposite. There are a lot of questions about whether this facility is going to be a good neighbor, whether it's going to be able to exist on the amount of water and electricity that we're making available to it. And I've read what such organizations as Sierra Club have said about this, and they're not against data centers, and they're not against this data center, but they've pointed out that there are a lot of questions that are unanswered. And they've also pointed out a reluctance by the Board of Supervisors here in Caroline County to demand promises that the data center is actually capable of giving. So it's not the data center that I'm opposed to, it's the power that the data center has in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mark Sandor. I'm in the West Mattapi voting district. I too echo some of the concerns that the previous person spoke of. I would hope that the commission would look at the full impact to county residents, and both economic and environmental. If having this data center is going to double our utility bills, then that's not a good thing for the working families in this county. And I've read where Dominion has stated that they believe to accommodate all the new requirements these data centers are going to bring will be at least a 20% increase in their capacity. Now, that should not be something that's passed on to the general ratepayers, i.e. hardworking families. And I'd like to also add that the environmental impact, water usage from the Rappahannock, it's not unlimited, and that needs to be carefully looked at. So I would beseech the commission to consider requiring an environmental impact study to be done and disseminated and allow the public to review that. That's all I'd like to say, is that this has a huge impact for working families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandor.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Friese, and I live in Western Carolina. I'm a registered voter.
What was your last name again, ma'am?
Friese, F-R-E-I-S-E.
Thank you.
We moved here 25 years ago to escape city life. I come to speak in opposition to changing the zoning around Jericho and Mount Airy roads from rural preservation to allow development such as the data center that has been proposed. I'm not necessarily against data centers, although as the former two people have said, I think they really need some careful consideration, and it would be nice if we could require them to fulfill certain obligations, such as providing an environmental study. The area under discussion, the Mount Airy Jericho Road area, is 4 miles from I-95 on a 2-lane highway that has only one passing lane between Mount Airy Road and Route 1. And I shudder to think of the traffic bottlenecks this could cause during construction and afterwards if there are a lot of people using the data center working there. If infrastructure improvements are necessary, who will foot the bill? We mentioned that a little bit, but is it the taxpayers responsible if there are road improvements that are needed? There are other areas of the county, as we mentioned, within the yellow area there, that are already zoned for industrial and commercial development, and those areas are by no means fully developed. And it seems to me it only makes sense to develop them first before destroying the rural nature of the western part of the county. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Friese.
Good evening, Faith McFadden, Mattaponi District. I'm still a little confused on the infrastructure. The way I understood it, the extension wasn't available for any residents to tap into. It was only for the development. So I'm not sure how that circles back on all of us to pay for. I ask that you uphold your original and well-founded denial of this boundary expansion. Removing some acreage from the area does not change its inappropriateness or the conflicts with our comprehensive plan. Going back on your decision does, however, show that we will bend to the pressures of large industries and their legal teams. If you reverse this decision now, what precedent are you setting? How could you deny any future applications in inappropriate areas or that conflict with our comprehensive plan? I'm certainly not a lawyer, but I imagine you would be giving future developers a pretty good leg to stand on in court if their projects were denied. I'd also like to remind everyone that the hyperscale developer behind the push for this amendment is the one whose project was initially presented with a request for expedited approval and no community involvement. In addition to the many previously expressed objections to this amendment, we should not be approving additional PERT areas. I took away from the water intake meeting that we do not have enough water for our current residents or for previously approved development that is yet to break ground. We know groundwater supplies are decreasing here, across the country, and around the globe. We cannot afford to approve anything that would allow data centers access to our water supply. Potable water, reuse water, any water, it all stems from the same sources. I can think of nothing more critical to the health, welfare, and safety of our residents than protection of our water. Our lives and future generations depend on this finite resource, and no amount of promised tax dollars can create more. As Mr. Litt Thompson said at the last meeting, think of the children. What water supply will be left for them and their families? At the board meeting earlier this week when discussing solar, it was well stated by one member that we are going to have to decide if we dance or if we fight. It's no secret that solar and data centers go hand in hand and that we are up against massive industries with individuals with deep pockets and extensive resources. I can only imagine the pressures exerted upon you and other county officials to get these projects approved. The way I see it, what is the worst they are going to do if denied? Sue the county and waste more of our tax dollars and time? We expect that, and we've already seen it with other projects. Tell us where to be and we will be there. We may disagree on many things, but we are on the same team fighting to protect the same county and people. This is much bigger than any of us as individuals. I'm asking you to fight. Fight for the county and residents you swore to protect. Fight for residents over industry and profit. Fight for the water that sustains us and the farms that feed our families. Fight as hard as it takes, whatever the cost, to ensure that these things are not only preserved for our futures, but for future generations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden.
Good afternoon. My name is Renata Keys Beasley. I am in the Mattaponi voting district. I'm presenting a letter on behalf of the landowners of the Keysmore property, which is located in the Reedy Church district. Members of the Caroline County Planning Commission, we are submitting this letter to express our support of the proposed amendment to the 2030 Comprehensive Plan and future land use map of Caroline County, Virginia, to create a planned innovation, research, and technology PERT area along Jericho Road. Our land is included in the reconfigured reduced footprint of the proposed PERT area along Jericho Road. Specifically, our land is noted in the Carmel Church Community Plan Option 2 map as the Keys parcels consisting of approximately 362.5 acres identified as the Keysmore property. Our family has owned the Keysmore property for generations, and we take great pride in maintaining and preserving our land. It is wooded land that we primarily use for hunting and recreational purposes. We do not use our land for agricultural purposes. As the Keysmore property is currently in the Rural Preservation Zoning District, we are limited as to the uses of our land. We requested that the Keysmore property be included in the proposed amendment to the comp plan and designated as a PERT area, as it will provide opportunities for future growth and development that we are currently excluded from. Chapter 8, Land Use of the Comp Plan, discusses PERT land use areas and indicates that the identification and protection of suitable tracts of land for technology uses and development is a critical economic development strategy of the county. It further provides that PERT areas are intended to preserve large tracts of land in close proximity to public utilities and that are either within or in close proximity to growth areas for high-value technology uses. The proposed PERT area along Jericho Road largely comports with these objectives identified in Chapter 8 of the comp plan, as the reduced area identified totals approximately 1,600 acres. The land is in close proximity to electric utilities as large power lines run through a segment of the acreage, and the land is in close proximity to the Carmel Church growth area. A proposed amendment to the comp plan to create a PERT area along Jericho Road also fosters economic advantages for the county and its citizens, including but not limited to new jobs, positive tax revenue, expanding public water and sewer, road improvements, and other direct and indirect growth and services. Conversely, the existing rural preservation zoning classification for the approximately 1,600 acres in the proposed PERT area encourages low-density dwellings, which would permit the development of up to approximately 150 single-family detached homes on the same land by right, which could have more impact on county resources and services, especially schools, and considerably fewer economic advantages. While we recognize there are differing opinions and views regarding the proposed PERT area along Jericho Road, we support the proposed amendment to the comp plan. We thank you for your continued careful consideration of this matter and request that you vote to approve the proposed comp plan amendment to create a PERT area along Jericho Road.
Ms. Beasley?
Yes. That's the end of it. It's respectfully submitted by the landowners of the Keysmore property.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Joyce Coffey, voting District 7. I moved to...
I'm sorry.
I'm in Glen Allen, Virginia, but I go to Jericho.
Not in Caroline.
No, I moved to Caroline in 1993, and I was impressed at how rural it was. I came from the Washington and Richmond area, so Caroline was new to me, and I enjoyed living there, but
My question is, what's going to happen with the overflow of people who will probably come to Caroline County? People are moving to Virginia, like 90 going south. And when the new residents come, particularly along Jericho Road, they're going to want water and sewer. So I think Caroline County needs to get ahead of the game by starting a comprehensive plan to make sure that the people who live on Jericho Road have what everyone else has. I think it's a right. I think it makes things convenient. And I am here to almost promise you that Caroline County's growth will be magnificent over the next few years. As I said before, I moved in 1993. I moved from the Washington area, born in Richmond, but moved from the Washington area. And I was highly impressed with how rural Caroline County was and still is. But people are going to come, and they are going to demand conveniences. So I'm simply saying, get ahead of the game, and I am in support of the comprehensive growth plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and distinguished commissioners. My name is Lit Thompson, and I'm a landowner in Caroline County. I am in favor of the comprehensive plan being changed for the following reasons, in addition to all the points that I made last time. Since I only have 3 minutes, please forgive me for just reading the pros and cons. This is only a comp plan change, not a zoning. The county still can choose to deny any and all projects that they do not feel would be the perfect project for the county. A comp plan change would take away the temptation of lesser uses down the road, like over 85 homes that we could build on the land by right, or solar fields, or quarries, or industrial land. This land represents only 0.03% of the 351,000 acres in the county, and would open the door to a $50 million per year revenue source to the county if a project was approved. This land is extremely hidden, and virtually no one would see a project on this site if a project were ever approved. Data centers are low impact, less impact than by right 85 homes. A future potential project would impact less than 15% of the land, which is only 128 acres, and would be extremely buffered at that. This land has a 500 kV transmission line running through the middle of it, which is known in the industry as the crown jewel of power lines. This 500 kV line is the largest in the industry and is twice the size of the 230 kV line running through the MC Dean property. The small 230 kV line through MC Dean is the same line that powers many of the other counties north and south, including the AWS project up the road and the one that was just unanimously approved last night in Hanover. 500 kV is twice the size. This land is in the growth area this land is in the growth area of Carmel Church. MC Dean is 3 miles to the east, and Mount Airy is 3 miles to the west. This makes the perfect border of growth between these two huge transmission lines. This will give the county the opportunity of a lifetime to become a world-class innovative technology hub that most counties in America would covet. And for sure, this beats truck stops and warehouses. And speaking of truck stops, it would take 15 1.2 million square foot distribution centers and 10,000 trucks to equal this one hidden tax generating gem. This is not spot zoning. It is already the growth area. The AWS project just approved is 12 miles from the growth area, and that is a great project and common sense growth. A future project on this site would bring water and sewer and utilities at no cost to a much needed part of the county where wells are drying up.
Mr. Thompson, I'm going to have to call time.
Okay, sorry. A comp plan change has no downside to the county and simply opens the door to an amazing project. The most important
Sir, we are in receipt of your memo that you're reading.
Okay.
We are in receipt of it. Thank you.
May I just say the one con?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, there will be opposition, and I do respect the opposition. Rural Carolina is absolutely beautiful, but by selecting a few data center sites will afford the county the ability to keep beautiful rural nature. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, and I also have a pass out, just some.
If you'll give it to Mr. Pennington, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening, sir.
My name's Rusty Foley. I live in Henrico County. I'm a real estate broker and been doing business in Caroline County for over 20 years. My industry, as everyone knows, is location, location, location. Well, the one thing I've learned over my career, timing is just as important. Over the past few years, the industrial market has been driven by large warehouse developments. Today, in addition to logistics, it's data centers, data storage, and they follow the larger transmission lines and substations. A 2023 McKinsey & Company study projects that we are going to need about 35 kW of cloud data center power capacity by 2030 to meet AI demand, compared to approximately 17 gigawatts required at the end of 2022. Obviously, that means many, many more data centers must be built and operating in a very short amount of time. Loudoun County has opened 80 data centers since 2019. I think Caroline County would be missing a huge opportunity if you do not expand the growth area and designate the Mount Airy site as a PERT overlay district. Your surrounding counties are working hard to make these data center projects for themselves. Why limit yourself? Caroline County website says this, and I quote, "All of Caroline County is a technology zone, including any property your company may be interested in. Caroline County is the first community in Virginia to designate its entire area as a technology zone. Caroline's technology zone is an overlay of all land use zonings and does not affect those land use designations." Excuse me. Your company will be assured that whatever site you choose, if the land use rezoning is possible, you will automatically be in a qualified site for technology zone incentives. Caroline is serious about recruiting your technology industry to our county. Caroline is actively seeking technology-based firms and will work assertively to make their recruitment process an excellent one. I think most residents in the county want to keep the rural nature in Caroline. Clustering these users will do exactly that. The Orrock site, the MC Dean area, even expanded, is not enough to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming here right now. Mount Airy is a perfect location for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Schwartz, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Mary Hodge. I'm a resident of the Bowling Green District. I will not reiterate the reasons against the PERT for the Jericho Road area, nor the rezoning application that lurks like a dragon in the dungeon, for they have already been stated and should have been recorded in all the previous meeting minutes, where all the local impacted residents spoke so meaningfully and intelligently. However, we do not seem to have minutes to the PC meetings any longer, and relevant information is presented hit or miss. What I would like to discuss are property values. All everyone seems to care about are the landowners who apparently don't hold these lands sacred and want to sell out their properties for the big bucks. What happens to the property values of the homes surrounding a PERT locality? They tank. The investment a citizen makes in their home is the most commonly a culmination of a lifelong dream and where the bulk of an individual or family's capital is invested. I know it is a fact for me. No one wants to live next to a humming electrical diesel generator noise and fume-producing complex of multi-story buildings containing banks of lithium batteries which would cause a toxic evacuation should they burst into flames, as happened in New York State last year. No one wants to live on a formerly country road, now overtaken with numerous construction equipment traffic and unsafe for travel by school-age children, senior citizens, or farm equipment. Then they come in like the company town with a water and sewer line when you already drink pure well water and pay no sewage fees. They will be happy to take your money for this, but what they are ultimately taking from you is your control. I would be compelled to sell my home. No family would want to buy it. Hence, I am forced to take a loss on my lifetime investment that I have worked for honestly and paid for in honest dollars. Most people investing a home will make a profit as their property value increases over time. This rezoning is an assault and theft of numerous citizens' major life assets. The second method of rezoning steals from nearby residents is of our health, from the health concerns and illnesses related to low-frequency noise, electromagnetic radiation, and pollution of our groundwater with PFAS and heavy metal runoff, increasing our risk of developing liver or kidney disease or the big C, cancer. And it is the county's responsibility to protect our health and safety. Land use has now changed from lovely rural bucolic, I want to live here and raise my kids, it's so quiet, the stars are out, we farmed this land for 8 generations, I want to pass it on to my kids, to I can't stand living here, the noise and years-long construction drives me nuts, and the whole landscape looks surreal, and nobody in its right mind would move here, and my kids won't live here when they grow up, and I pray I won't lose my shirt on this sale. Thank you, sirs. And
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Excuse me.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ann Neal Cosby, and I'm here representing Valco Caroline LLC, speaking in support of the expansion of the Carmel Church growth area to include the Mount Airy PERT, and specifically to adopt a limited PERT area that includes at minimum 865 acres, including the proposed Valco Data Center Park. The original PERT area, which contained over 2,800 acres, may have been a bit too much growth or maybe too much too soon. A smaller area strikes a balance between economic development and community benefits. The Board of Supervisors added the PERT area to the Carmel Church sub-area plan to protect certain lands for technology uses as part of the county's economic development strategy. PERT areas are appropriate where 4 criteria are met: where there are large tracts of land in proximity to public utilities, within or in proximity to growth areas, and where technology sites can be incorporated under appropriate circumstances. An 865-acre PERT satisfies all of these criteria. The area is comprised of large tracts of undeveloped land. It's in close proximity to public utilities. As you've heard and as you know, there's a 500 kV line, the largest in the county, that runs the entire length of the property. Water and sewer infrastructure would be constructed by the developer for approximately 3 miles along Jericho Road to serve the site. As you've also heard, this infrastructure would then be dedicated to the county at a benefit of over $13 million. This would be repaid by tax revenue from the site. It would not be subsidized by taxes from other taxpayers. Once dedicated, this utility line would and could be used for public use after dedication. So it could serve those areas on Jericho Road. The smaller PERT is only about 1.2 miles from the current growth area boundary, and if the Luckstone request to expand the growth area boundary westward is approved, and you're going to talk about that at your work session, the PERT area proposed would be less than a mile from the new boundary. Last, the development of the property would have limited impacts on the surrounding areas. I know we're not here on any rezoning request, but it's a criteria that's important. So the area is generally isolated from residential uses. There would be no or limited visibility from public roads, adjacent properties, and the North Anna River. There would be limited impacts on traffic, and a traffic management plan would be approved during construction. No improvements to the road would be necessary based on existing traffic studies. Finally, the site would be developed in accordance with the county's PERT development standards, which regulate setbacks, development, noise, height, and other impacts. This is not spot zoning, and the Planning Commission would not be required to approve any other future request unless it also met these stringent criteria. This would be done on a case-by-case basis. So again, we do support the western part at least to the 865 acres. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Devin Blows. I'm from Western Caroline. In 2018, I moved to Caroline County after retiring from the Marine Corps. I moved here with my wife and 2 school-age children who are currently in the Carmel Christian School on Jericho Road. I work from home, spend a lot of time in the county as a DoD contractor. So I'm also here today representing a local hunting club that has asked me to speak for them. They've been operating in the county since the 1990s. It's a 40-member club with over 30 of them born and raised here in Caroline County. So on behalf of myself and the 40 club members of that hunt club, I'd like to express our support for the rezoning of the Mount Airy property to allow for the establishment of the data center. Based on the comments of the Planning Commission in previous meetings, it was apparent that the commission in general is supportive of data centers within the county, so I'm not going to speak extensively to that. I'll just reiterate a couple points. Increased revenue to the county, very critical to protecting the overall resources of the county and ensuring our children get the resources that they need as they grow up in this county. Our schools, the police force, and then local economic opportunity for the residents within the county without having to leave the county and push up to DC and Richmond areas. With that said, what I'd really like to focus on is why we support the expansion of the urban development area specific to the discussed area and then more specifically to the Mount Airy property. We have 3 considerations that we were looking at. One is the landowner, Lit Thompson. He's a longtime resident and of multiple generations with his land here in the county. He has worked with the hunting club for many years on multiple properties, and he's been developing property for over 20 years and has a track record of investing in the real estate responsibly, and will undoubtedly continue this effort, reinvesting some of the profits from this sale into the community upon that sale. The second one is the property itself, which has been extensively talked about. The current urban development area is driving all of the development along the 95 corridor. While that corridor is an important resource to the community, it's not the best area for data centers. It's not where the data centers want to go, and we need to flex to that and be aware of that and cognizant of that if we want them to come to our community. The Mount Airy property there allows the construction to be along the existing power lines, near a water source for cooling, and in a manner where the development can be spread out and concealed, minimizing the impact to the community and the environment itself. It has been identified by the experts as an ideal area. Yes, sir. Finally, the developer tract has a focus on this development, a record for building successful data centers across the country, and then specifically in Virginia.
Okay,
they are well resourced.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello.
Good evening.
My name's Melissa Vaughn. Reedy Creek is where my land is. I live in Ashland. keep it brief. Please deny this. I'm a person of moderation. I'm a planner myself. I don't think we're ready to amend this comp plan. I think we should develop what we have already established as a growth area, and I think we need to take our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'll try to make this brief. I'm Alec Mebane. I work for a landowner in the Bowling Green District.
Your name again, sir?
Alec Mebane.
Thank you.
In the work for a landowner in the Bowling Green District. I'm a little bothered this evening, and I apologize for my nervousness. Well, I'll address that point last. The plan that was developed for the county won awards. That has been cited many times. And the reason it won awards is because it considered things well. And it did include the term rural preservation and many, many, many other outstanding features. So sticking with that plan and not catering to special exception after special exception after special exception requests is admirable. And I hope that you all will be able to stick to that viewpoint that rural preservation is important, and in fact, rural Virginia is important. So keeping rural Virginia would be lovely. I also do believe that it is not at all impossible to have water and sewer extended along Jericho Road to residents, or even as one lady this evening said, possible future residents. That can happen without having a PERT so far away from the growth area designated. I also have spent a lot of time looking at that landscape, and both from the Hanover side as well as the Caroline side. It is rather important historically. There's a lot of battlefield activity on the Hanover side, also on the Caroline side, some of which actually isn't even discussed by the National Park Service. And I think that the Wright family in particular might be able to share some of that information with you all. I also have to just say, lastly, that I know that we are in Virginia, where my relative Thomas Jefferson made it sure that we would have a separation between church and state, but having a meeting on Thursday in Holy Week is probably something that many of you all aren't terribly enthusiastic about either. So I'm really sad, and I'm going to try to get to church, and I know that Salem Baptist Church had their cards out here on this table earlier this week saying, please come to Maundy Thursday services. So there we all are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. My name is Kyle Hart. I represent a nonprofit called the National Parks Conservation Association. I've obviously spoken to you all before. I'll start with sort of a very simple statement, which is NPCA remains opposed to a PERT area data center on this parcel simply because of its proximity to a parcel of Richmond National Battlefield directly across the river from this site. And I kind of wanted to talk very briefly because, you know, we've heard a lot tonight about sort of broader data center impacts. And while NPCA remains concerned about things like water use and energy use and ratepayer bills and all of that, which is of great concern, at its core, this is a discussion about the county's comp plan and whether or not this area fits in with the broader comp plan in the broader growth area? And the answer is obviously no. You heard from your own county staff tonight that talked about desire for rural preservation and desire for keeping development away from the North Anna River. This growth area does exactly that. It keeps growth near 95 away from the North Anna River. You have extensive PERT area in this growth area that has, as you once again heard tonight, has not been built out. The whole point of a comp plan is to follow the path set forth by years of expertise and work. And this plan is so obvious that it seeks to completely throw all of that work out the window to benefit a small few. And that is the complete opposite of what this commission is supposed to do and what county local governments are supposed to do. So with that, I'll just reiterate, this is a bad plan, first due to its proximity to Manassas National Battlefield and the North Anna River, but also because it's completely out of alignment with the county's own comp plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Excuse me.
Good evening. My name is Matt Keeley, and I live in the Reedy Church District. I've been there for almost 15 years now. Moved there with my wife right after I got out of the Marine Corps. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. I've got 2 kids back there now, and they were born and raised here. And I spoke to you all, I guess it was last month, and honestly, I'm frustrated that I have to be back here. Because unlike Tract, unlike the landowners, I'm not getting paid for this, okay? I work 12 hours today. I skipped dinner to come up here. I missed the first part of the meeting. I'm frustrated that I'm back here, and I'm not directing this at anybody up there personally, but we've got a comprehensive plan. And if you turn around and look at that map, what we're discussing right here is laughable. This isn't the Carmel Church community plan. It isn't even near, it doesn't even connect to it. We've got land that's already planned for this use, and I would understand it if the county was growing at such a pace. We've already developed all the land set aside, but we haven't. It's sitting vacant, but we're gonna bump out here to the side down this road that's not connected to the rest of the development area for what? Because somebody wants to sell their property and make a bunch of money, and they don't care about what their neighbors want, what they plan their, they're probably their largest life investment, their property, their home, where they raise their family. They base that on, many of them, on the comprehensive plan that was put forward. I know I did, and I'm here on their behalf, because we can just crumple that thing up and throw it in the trash can. How do I know somebody, Kevin Engels, or one of the big property owners down near where I live, decides he wants to sell 600 acres for whatever reason, and then I've got that in my backyard? Where do I, as a county resident, have any confidence that that's going to be laughed at and thrown out because it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan that all of this time and energy was spent creating? It needs to stand for something, and they can, parse and reduce and make concessions all they want, but at the end of the day, they're after something that doesn't fit in with the comprehensive plan, and all these citizens are coming out, and we have to keep coming out because they modify it, and then we have to come out again. And I'm frustrated, and I hope that you do not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Anyone else wishing to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tanika Stevens Young. I'm actually Juan Young's wife. And I am part of the Reedy Church District. I am originally a resident from North Carolina. I grew up in a community that is very similar to Caroline County, and I love the beauty of Caroline County. So I lived in Henrico County prior to moving here to Caroline County, and when my husband said, hey, let's move back to my hometown, I was like, he didn't have to ask me twice, I'll say that. I was ready to go because, again, I love the beauty of this area. It is, it's peaceful, it's quiet, and it's everything that where I was not. And so for me, even with all of that said, I have to say, as a teacher here in Caroline County, at Caroline County Middle School, I see the urgent need for resources for our children. And I feel that having a data center, which would provide some economic relief, and it would also help the residents here in providing some relief for property taxes. And these are some things that really need to be considered because our children don't have plans to stay here. They have plans to leave and not come back. So what are we saying for the children here? It's only the people who have, who may have property that they're passing down, but even when those kids leave, and the property has been passed down to them, what are they going to do with it? Do they want to continue to have that property? Do they want to sell it? What are they going to have to come back to? So these are things that really need to be considered. And the data center would provide so much for people. And one of the things that I have to say, I've heard people say things about water and sewer and like having to have that if it's provided for this area. And as I said, I grew up in an area that's very similar. I grew up without water and sewer. I grew up with a septic tank and a well, and my parents actually still have a septic tank and well. And one of the things that I know is that you don't have to tap into that water line if you don't want to. It's totally your choice. So, but to be able to offer that to people who are coming from other areas that would like to have that amenity is something that is needed. And why not really think about the growth for the children? Think about the future of this county, because if it's going to be many, many years before this is ever evaluated again, then things need to be considered. And we want to think about all of the children. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevenson. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Don Herod. I'm from Reedy Church. So I could go back and restate much of what my neighbors have already said. What I would honestly say first and up front is I agree. I'm pretty frustrated. I'm actually a transplant into Caroline, but I've sat in these meetings for the last year. We got the schedule, when you all began to consider this, and I would ask you, as we consider this yet again, remember how you voted, because as they've scaled, as they may have changed, as they may have made minor tweaks, it is the same pig with a little bit different color lipstick on it that you all have already voted on. And I would ask you to, again, remember what has been voted on, what has already been stated, and the opposition that has already been presented. I was born in Prince William County, and we see what's happening there with all of the growth. I literally can't even navigate my own hometown any longer because of the amount of growth that's taken place there. As when I came back before retiring from the Marine Corps, I lived in Spotsylvania, and now we have, growth that as you drive into Massaponax and north to Route 3, and I'm a veteran. I love the fact that they're building a veterans hospital there, but you look at that, and now no longer can the residents move about freely. As we see that coming here, think about Caroline County and the rural nature of it. Again, your plan, and I'll put my bottom line up front. I spent 21 years, much of it in combat, executing a plan. Execute your plan. Yes, there is change that can take place, living, breathing documents as we've heard about that, but you have unused areas within your current plan that won awards that is not yet used for these exact purposes. They're chasing a power line is what they're doing. I assess these things for the government on a regular basis. The implications on the electric, the implications on the water for HVAC and cooling, the implications on the environment for the generators that they will have to run to compensate for their power that cannot be pulled in by Dominion and the other high voltage lines needs to be considered as you push forward. This was my life investment moving to Caroline County. I ended my time in the Marine Corps. This is where I want to live out the rest of my days. I live right off of Tate Road. this is going to be on my doorstep, and it's going to be on my doorstep for years and years and years to come. We are intending to leave a legacy for our family here in Caroline County that is rural, that doesn't exist in many places in the states any longer, and I've lived all over the United States. Please, I'm asking you to maintain that for my investment, for my neighbor's investment. This doesn't need to be here when you have a plan that has designated other areas that have not yet been expanded into for these exact purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Harrod. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, Planning Commission. Kevin Collins, Reedy Church District. I have a couple things planned. I hope you would afford me a couple extra seconds. I've got a few things to go through. First, I want to read the comprehensive plan that has been left out tonight. The section that says preserve areas containing unique and sensitive natural features such as wildlife habitats, migration corridors, steep slope streams, and wetlands. Exactly what this property is. It also states in the next strategy 3.3.1, future land use map should not propose any residential, commercial, or industrial zoning uses that border the North Anna River. We gather here to discuss this matter, proposed project that seeks to connect areas outside our growth zone via a strip of Jericho Road. It's evident that this project is not only ill-conceived, but also deeply flawed. I heard the saying tonight, it's like beating a dead mule. At this point, it's just a bag of bones. 15 months of these meetings I have attended faithfully, and tonight is the first night I have seen any support for this project. Let's consider the sheer absurdity of this endeavor. A 26-mile electric line stretching from north to south. Who in their right mind would foot the bill for such a mammoth undertaking? And let's not forget the 28 data centers that are part of this plan. There's no concrete plan in place for water or electric supply. The proponents of this project have shamelessly touted a 500 kV line as a selling point, a blatant falsehood that has been exposed tonight, and the landowner continues to spew this falsehood just this evening. Our own planning department admitted on record that staff was not comfortable with the original comp plan change because it would appear like we were accommodating one owner and that could be perceived as spot zoning. And that has been a very common theme tonight among the people supporting this. Furthermore, it's bewildering to note that this same landowner who is pushing for this project owns 1,100 acres of undeveloped land in Carmel Church and has just had a data center approved at this very meeting tonight. Shouldn't we pause and assess how this first project fares before diving headlong into yet another venture? After all, this landowner has no prior experience with projects in Caroline County and does not live in Caroline County. Contrast this folly tonight with the recent $6 billion investment in Thornburg. We've seen the successful establishment of a data center PERT in Carmel Church, and the one this evening would boast 5 data center buildings, all while ensuring access to water and sewer, which is already there in Carmel Church. It's evident there are more sensible ways to foster growth and development without resorting to reckless schemes. We must deny this project. I also have a petition here. It's been signed by over 300 people online and in person to protect the North Anna River and designate it a scenic waterway. Thank you.
Mr. Collins, are you going to make that petition a part of the record with Mr. Pennington?
Yes, I am still waiting on a few letters. I have support letters from the Old Dominion Smallmouth Club, Coastal Canoeists.
Okay.
I'm still gathering it. I wasn't prepared, but it will be presented to you all and to the Board of Supervisors as well.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak?
How you doing? My name is Gilliam Hurt. I live in...
I'm sorry, sir, I did not get your name.
Gilliam Hurt, and I'm in the Reedy Church voting district. I'm here in favor of the amendment. As we've heard from both sides, there are pros and cons to everything that you do. but you have to look towards the future. And I think with this amendment, it's a balance of the rural preservation and technological advancements. So I would just urge the commission to not be a prisoner of the moment of the pros or the cons. Look towards the future and what would be the most advantageous to the community during this time. So we already see in this area that internet is coming through. I have children that were at home during the pandemic, and we had trouble with internet. So technology is steady coming through, and internet is just one of those things. And I think this amendment will continue to bring positive change to the community. So I just urge the commission to vote in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Third and final call. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one coming forward, the public hearing is now closed. With that, we are going to take a 10-minute break. We will resume at 8:10 p.m. All right, commissioners. Regarding Comp Plan Amendment 02-2023, regarding the Mount Airy Land Innovation Research and Technology Area. I think we need to keep in mind, number one, we appreciate all of the comments by everyone. And this commission does listen and we do hear you. The comments are a part, I think, at least for me, part of the equation of making a decision. Only a part. There are many other factors that I use to make a decision. That being said, commissioners, we can now discuss this comp plan amendment. And I believe Mr. Weber had some comments he wanted to make before we broke for the public hearing. Mr. Weber, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. I love the way they use the magic crayons on this drawing, okay? Anybody that thinks that the little blue area is not going to come back into that zoning area is only fooling themselves. They cut that out and they said to us, we're cutting out, I might get this right now. The original plan was 2,896 acres. They reduced it to 1,661 acres. Now, I think we'd all be fooling ourselves, including the general public, to believe that if we accept this plan and say that they're only going to develop that 1,661 acres, I think we'd be fooling ourselves and we'd be fooling the general public. Because if we do that, and if we went ahead and approved this for that area, that whole piece of property, the 2,800 acres, will be included in 2 years. That's just my statement. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other commissioners have any comments? Dr. Horton.
So it is a good plan, you know, and the county does need the money. What I'm still very concerned about is the lack of water in this area. I mean, we can talk about putting the lines in, but we also got to think about where's the water going to come from that's going in those lines. We currently do not draw off the Rappahannock. We've applied to the state for a permit to draw off the Rappahannock. King George, right on the other side, also wants that same water that we want. And then we've got to figure out how to bring that water from the Rappahannock all the way up here to Carmel Church. So water is a big issue in Caroline. The water table is going down. Where Caroline gets its public water right now is from some very deep wells that the county has dug, and that's our public water sources for the most part. The data centers, I'm for these data centers. The tax money is just great. We do need it for our schools. But they do need, unless they're air cooled, they do need a lot of water. So that is still in my mind, where's the water going to come from, is my thought. I mean, I wish we did have the water. It's a big opportunity. This area is eventually, I mean, growth is going to expand out that way. The comprehensive plan is only it's a general idea of what you want to do, but as your county grows, as the population grows, the comprehensive plan does change. It's reviewed every so many years, and every time it's reviewed, it's tweaked a little bit. So the growth, I don't know how long it'll take. It will probably expand out that way eventually, but we've got, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want to have some water and other things in place first. That's just my thoughts for now.
I think, too, we need to keep in mind, this is not about a data center. It wouldn't matter whether you were going to put any other type of plant or business in that area. To me, what it is about, it's about a way of life. We in Caroline County enjoy a pretty much basic rural lifestyle. That's why we live here. That's why we have people moving here, is for the lifestyle. If we wanted to live in big cities or in industrial areas, we would move there, but we don't. I would not want, as one gentleman said, want this on my doorstep. We live basically in the country because that's where we want to be, and that's where we expect to be. We voted on this 6-0 previously with a recommendation of denial to the Board of Supervisors. The board, in their infinite wisdom, also voted to deny it. Subsequently, for whatever reason that's unbeknownst to anyone on this commission, they modified the comp plan amendment for a reduction in size, just like Mr. Weaver said. And I would venture to say, I've said it before, looking into a crystal ball, and I somewhat got chastised about it, but those blue areas will suddenly reappear down the road. We do not have the water system to put into it. It would be at taxpayer expense eventually. It's too far outside of the growth zone that we have already established and where we have data centers going in, theoretically. No reference has been made to the distance that Matamede is only a short distance further away. Matamede may or may not come to fruition because there is supposedly a utilities agreement with Spotsylvania County that has not been finalized. I don't even think they're anywhere close to ending negotiations on it. So without Spotsylvania providing the utilities, I don't think Caroline will be able to provide them either, but that's a different horse. So I don't think you can really make a comparison as to location and with the resources coming out of Spotsylvania. And with that, you know, I'm going to stand firm on my previous vote. Now, I don't know how the other commissioners will feel, but certainly the discussions are still open. And if anyone else has anything else to say, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I will stay with my vote the way it was. I think when we sent it back down to the Board of Supervisors or up to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of denial, I think that was the right thing to do, and I would stay with that vote. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Minor.
Mr. Chairman, we designated the east of Carmel Church area for growth, and we haven't exceeded that growth. I'm for growth in Caroline County, but we still have room in the eastern area of the Common Church area for growth. So let's fill that area up and then expand. That's my point of view of that.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Mr. Young?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I got quite a bit to talk about tonight. First of all, the director of our utilities have already indicated that we have more than enough water to accommodate this. Secondly, what's been proposed to, if this is a data center that's going up to Jericho Road, it's going to be using gray water as opposed to clean water. And then also, this is an isolated area, which appears to be the best place for these types of businesses. I always say it's better to be ready than to get ready. And this particular project was generated by the county. The developer came to the county asking for a large tract of land, and this particular land was designated or suggested to them. As we've heard tonight, the developer is responsible for the water and sewer, which is a benefit not just to the residents of Jericho Road, but it's a benefit to the entire county. The developer is also responsible for the power consumption as well as the installation of the power, the substations, and anything else that needs to go in there that's on the developer. This project would be a major benefit to the entire county, like I said, not just Jericho Road. It's estimated about $50 million in revenue of our current $150 million entire budget for the county. That's a no-brainer. Hanover County just approved theirs last night, and that's about $80 million revenue. And, we have residential projects that are already been approved, residential projects that are ready to go, Haymont, and a few others. They're ready to go right now. Where's that money going to come from to pay for public safety as well as schools, water, sewer, and anything else other than out of the taxpayers' pockets? We need commercial development. Our business revenues should be large enough that we don't have to raise our taxes. Just a couple nights ago, the Board of Supervisors proposed a 6-cent tax increase to cover public safety and operations. We just built a new fire station. That cost us $6 million. We got two more to build and possibly 4 more to come. Like I said, at a tune of $6+ million. Where's that money coming from? It's coming from our taxpayers. You're talking about land value going down? There's no truth to that. You got large farms out here that pay little or no taxes. There's no benefit to the county. We're asking businesses to come to the county to support the county. How can we be a county that says we're open for business, but we're yet not allowing businesses to come? So I look at it as we're handcuffed, sometimes feel like it's handcuffing, the landowners and the developers to do what just a few people want and what's not best for the county. Most people here tonight that are in opposition of this particular growth plan being expanded don't even live in the county or either are not in the neighborhood. Okay? I said most, excuse me. Next, again, you mentioned that you wouldn't want this in your backyard. Well, it's in somebody's backyard. All of the projects are going to be in somebody's backyard. So why not make the playing field even? So I respect everybody that's been here and everything that's been said tonight. But again, I'm going to say, and several months ago when this thing came back along, yes, I voted no in the beginning because I was not educated as to what was going on and didn't have all the information in front of me. I was the one that said, hey, let's take this back to the public and allow the public to speak. And I think the public is speaking now. The public has spoken. And I want to hear, I think the public should be able to have that voice to say what they want and what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else have any further? There being no further discussion, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the, I'm sorry. Let me get it here. CA02 2023. And pass it up to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration.
A motion by Mr. Young for approval. Is there a second? Motion has been made by Mr. Young for approval of the comp plan amendment. Is there a second? There being no second, the motion denies for lack of a second. I will make a motion that whereas the public necessity, convenience, general welfare and good planning, land use and zoning practices warrants the denial of a proposed comprehensive plan is what I'm reading here. Amendment. I recommend that the amendment be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of denial.
Second.
Motion by the chair, seconded by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor of recommendation of denial signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
There being division amongst the commissioners, we will conduct a roll call vote. Mr. Minor, how say you?
Aye.
Dr. Horton?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Mr. Young?
Nay.
Mr. Young votes nay. Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver votes aye. And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams votes aye. The motion for denial carries 5-1. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of denial. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Any discussion on this?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are leaving.
Make a motion.
All right, Mr. Hughes, the Luck Development Corporation Plan Amendment request, is that something we need to set down for a further work session or something we can dispose of tonight with a work session, or how say you?
Well, the purpose of the work session was to introduce to you all the proposed comp plan amendment that is being put forth by Luck Development. There were actually two items for work session, that project and the proposed expansion of the MC Dean PERT area.
Need to be what, sir?
And the proposed expansion of the MC Dean PERT area.
Yes, sir.
So the purpose of the work session was to introduce those items to you all, so that they could be.
Now we need a motion to conduct a work session, which we can do now.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I just want to stay with protocol. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, commissioners, is there a motion to go into a work session regarding the Luck Development Corporation and the proposed amendment to the MC Dean area?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into a work session for CA 03-2024 and CA 04-2023.
Second.
2024.
Motion by Mr. Young, seconded by Mr. Weaver. We are now conducting a work session with all the same cast members of the commission, staff, and legal present. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. We Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Proceed, please, sir.
That's the wrong one. So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so, no, that's the right slide. So tonight we want to bring to you a work session of the potential expansion of the MC Dean PERT area, and we call it the MC Dean PERT area for lack of a better title at this point. But what I would do, I wanted to have this work session with you all because we have a upcoming community meeting on April 11th that we will give the citizens an opportunity to come out and understand what the proposed expansion is about. And for those who aren't aware what a PERT area is, also to explain to those citizens what a PERT area is. So right now what you see on the map is in yellow is an outline of the existing Carmel Church growth area. The area in red is the existing Carmel MC Dean PERT area. And then for people to orient themselves, I've added a couple of labels here. So Route 1 is here. This is the interchange here in Carmel Church. This is I-95 running here, and this is Route 207 running here, and it runs along this blue line here. The blue line represents the proposed expansion area. There is, when the original line was drawn, this red line did not extend over to 207, and hence this line kind of splits some parcels in this area. And so moving this line out to Route 207 would remove the dissection of some of those properties there. Expanding to the east here with this blue line from the existing boundary, the county was approached by a landowner that has significant holdings in this area. There have been a couple of landowners who have expressed interest in having their properties included in this PERT area since we began, discussing it. And the reason for the potential expansion is the fact that we are getting significant interest, and we know that landowners in this red area are getting significant interest from potential development in there. And so I think someone said tonight, it's better to get ready or be ready than have to get ready. And so that's kind of the rationale for looking at the potential expansion. Because if things continue on the path that they are, this land area here could be consumed very quickly. The expansion of the PERT area meets the criteria that we identified when establishing this red area and also the Matamede area. It has the existence of a power line here. This is a 230 kV line here. The water treatment facility is here. And then there are a limited number of residential properties within this area here. And then the expansion of it would still provide a significant buffer to many of the properties, residential use, to many of the residential residents that are down here in this area along McBryant Road and then also Drawbridge Road, which kind of runs this way here. So I hope everyone is oriented. And so it's a little different map here that I think is a little bit easier to see. The expansion area. And just for orientation, this is the rail line here that runs in this direction here. Again, 207 here and 95 here. And there again, the expansion is adjacent to the existing boundary. It meets much of the criteria for large parcels and few residential, existing residential properties. And then with the per zoning classification, the requirements for development in that are in that zoning district would provide additional mitigation to any uses that happen in that area. So this is a kind of a generalization of the distances from the expanded boundary. So as you can see, there are some residential units within this PERT area here, but then when you come out to the rings here, these lines represent distances from the blue line here. So this first line represents a 500-foot distance. This is 1,000 and this is 2,000. So as you can see here at the bottom, you know, when you get to the 500-foot mark, you do have some residential uses within there. But then at 1,000, there's one there, and then at 2,000, there's one there. So there are some significant environmental features in this area. And this map here represents the RPA and RMA, as well as the wetlands areas in this area. So you can see where you have some residential units down in this area, there's a significant environmental feature here that would provide some natural buffer potentially there. We have had a letter of interest from a property owner that lives along this boundary here for potential inclusion of their property in the PERT area, which would kind of dip this line some if it was included. But as you can see there again, for those citizens or residents that are here to the far east, I would say, then there's this environmentally sensitive area here. And then these residents here, there's this environmentally sensitive area in there. And as you know, the PERT ordinance requires some significant buffering around any development that occurs. So that kind of explains the area and the rationale for looking at a potential expansion. I think there was a letter from the Economic Development Director, including your packet, where he expressed his thoughts on a rationale for potentially expanding that area. So just to recap, you know, existing interest for properties within the current area, a cleanup of the boundary along Route 207, and then adding the additional area to provide additional space for potential future development of PERT uses. It would go, the total area would go from about 1,000 acres to about 3,000 acres in totality, in totality, when you include what would be the new boundary over here with the expanded boundary over here. Just to be clear, the boundary would still follow here. So the expansion would just go that direction to the south and then up here to the north. And there again, there's significant environmental features up here to the north. We have had an inquiry from someone who asked if we would consider expanding to the north up in this area. But at this point, that seems a little premature to expand to the north when, you know, this area would certainly accommodate future development. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. And so,
Mr. Fee, I had a question about why the bump out the way that they have it up there at the northeast corner, I'll say, above the wetland. Yeah, that area right there.
Because that is a single parcel. So the parcel kind of, that's the boundary of that parcel.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hughes, I didn't quite understand it. It's what?
That is a parcel boundary. So to keep the line following a parcel boundary and not dissecting a parcel boundary, it just ran along that boundary.
Okay, so that's a parcel boundary.
Yes.
How big is that parcel? Do you know offhand?
I don't know the individual part. It's a pretty good size. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
was gonna
extends.
say, because it encompasses quite a bit of wetland.
Yes.
So that's already a property line per se. Yes, okay.
How would you what if the road's leading to that bump up, that parcel?
So there's access to that piece up here from
Panola.
Panola, yes.
And what kind of interests do we have in this area that we couldn't already accommodate with our current growth area?
Well, there's significant interest right now within the current PERT area right now. So that's what I'm saying, that's why we have even considered this, because we're getting significant interest from developers within the current PERT area. And if you look at what
Yeah, I know we have a
companies have
list of
done.
some, yeah.
Yeah, well, the amount of acreages that people have purchased or companies have purchased, then that area could be consumed relatively quickly.
Okay.
I think one thing this has going in its favor is that it's already adjacent to a designated PERT area. So, you know, it's down the road, if they want to put in, let's say, a data center, we're still going to have to address the water issues and everything else. So this is not a rezoning. It's just saying that potentially PERT can go in, a data center could go in there.
It would just create the land use designation in the comp plan, which would essentially say that this area is appropriate for, you know, PERT uses, technology uses.
And where are the major power lines running through here?
So the 230 line runs right here. That's the 230 line.
Okay.
And that is a line that can be tapped. I mean, you can pull power off of that to support or run a data center.
All right, so what do we need to do? Set this for a public hearing, or?
Well, the only thing I would ask is that you, at this point, just authorize a public hearing, not set a date, because like I said, we're going to have a community meeting on April 11th. And so if the commission would just authorize a public hearing, then when it's appropriate time, then we will bring that back for a public hearing. But I don't know what's gonna come out of the community meeting, and so establishing a date at this point should be premature.
So just leave it as an open date?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which district is this in again?
Reedy Church.
Reedy Church.
That's what I was thinking.
And Mr. Hughes, what day did you say the community was going to meet on this?
The community meeting is April 11th at 6:30 in the Visitor Center.
Thank you.
Make my notes before I forget them. All right, commissioners.
What time was that, Mr. Hughes?
6:30.
Okay.
April 11th? For the
Community meeting.
All light drinks. Don't love light drinks.
Is there a motion to,
That's just a community meeting. That's not a public hearing or anything. It's just.
It's just a community meeting. It's just an opportunity to inform the public and hear from the citizens.
so is there a motion to authorize for a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move CA 032024 to the future for a public hearing and a future date to be determined.
Motion by Mr. Young, seconded by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. So authorized. CA 04-2024.
Yes. So, as you're aware, Luck Development Corporation has submitted an application for a comprehensive plan amendment to amend this area, which is in the Carmel Church growth area, It's identified right now as rural transition, and they would ask that the land use designation be changed to office and industrial. Just for geography, and so you know where we are. So this is the intersection of Route 1 and Jericho Road, Route 207 on this side. Route 1 is along here. You can see there by Route 1. Long Creek is here, which is the current boundary of the Carmel Church growth area to the west. It runs along Long Creek right over there. This is Jericho Road here. The Carmel School is on this parcel right here. So the applicant, Luck, has two requests. The request is for about, I'm sorry, the request is for, 1,197 acres, 17 parcels to be redesignated from rural transition to office industrial, and also, like I said, to extend the boundary of the growth area to the edge of the parcels that they control and would be a part of, their development. They are proposing eventually, if the comp plan amendment is approved and a subsequent rezoning comes along and is approved, for a proposed industrial park. The expansion of like I said, of the growth area, which, much like the MC Dean area, would allow all the parcels that would have all of the parcels to have the same land use designation. So like I said, Long Creek is here, and as you can see, it bisects this piece here, again here, here, and here. All of those parcels, if the boundary was not expanded, then you'd have two different land use designations on parcels that probably would have, if the zoning got approved, then they would have, let's say an industrial zoning, but you'd have a portion of the property that would be outside of the growth area.
Mr. Hughes, the area to the left of the existing primary growth area that they're wanting to extend.
This area here?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any residences in that area?
There are some along here.
I'm speaking of directly within the broken red line that you're indicating.
No, not within, no.
Okay. No. Thank you. That was my concern. I don't want to see anyone displaced or put out or anything of that nature.
Yeah, no, not within.
So, Mr. Hughes, on this map right here, this is, okay, so the gray area.
Yes, the gray area. So
on
this
the
is,
left.
Yes, the area right in here is what we're talking about. So
They want that included in the Carmel Church.
It's currently in the growth area.
Okay.
It's already in the growth area.
Okay.
Its designation right now is rural transition. They want to make it office and industrial. So it's the only, like I said, the only expansion of the growth area is to move it out so that all of the parcels that they control have the same land use designation.
So they want to extend it a little.
Yes. Yeah.
Not split the property.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
And so,
Can you show me again, you had the difference of what it is now compared to what they want it to be?
Yes. So Long Creek here is the current boundary.
Okay, so that's current,
Yes.
and they want to make it the red,
Yes. And like I said, that would,
because that includes all their parcels.
that is correct.
Okay.
Any further questions by the commissioners?
And Mr. Chair, if you have, the applicant is here tonight. If you have any questions that you wanted to ask them directly, they are available to answer any questions. If you
I
have.
don't know that it's necessary. I think if we call for a vote to authorize a public hearing, we'll probably be down the road now. It's just a guess. Unless the applicant would like to speak, we'd be happy to hear from him. I would hate for them to make a trip in vain, but come on, Mr. Payne, not all the time.
Well, I'll hold on to it. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is John Riley. I'm the general manager of Luck Development. It's good to see everybody. Didn't have a lot prepared to speak this evening, but we are here, happy to answer questions. And as Mr. Hughes indicated, really the expansion of the growth boundary is just to include the entirety of the parcels that we own in the growth area, since some of them are split by the boundary currently. So we're just kind of cleaning up the lines. And then, as Mr. Hughes indicated, we would ask for a change in the designation from rural transition to office and industrial. We've been working pretty extensively with our neighbors, our immediate neighbors, over the last couple of years. We've owned this property since late 90s, early 2000s. As you all, I'm sure you know, Luck has been operating in Caroline County for about 30 years. Just down the road here. Happy to be here, excited to be presenting this project to you all, looking forward to engaging the public. We'll also be holding a public meeting to engage, not only the citizens that we've been working with, our direct neighbors there, but anyone who's interested in learning more about the project. So that'll be upcoming as well. But if there are any specific questions, we're certainly happy to address those this evening. And Mr. Payne's with us to help guide us through the application. So, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, sir. Mr. Riley?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Are you at liberty to let us give us a general idea of what it is that you're proposing to put in the area?
Yeah, I think it would be, we don't have a specific user today. I will say we've had a significant amount of interest. We're not, this project, has not been targeted for, I know there's been a lot of talk about data center development this evening. That's not a use that we've necessarily been targeting or has been in touch with us. I think, there are some limitations to the property, namely the proximity of the transmission lines from this property as opposed to others. So, we wouldn't, not to say that as the infrastructure in the community grows over time, that couldn't be a use and certainly we would be interested in. But I think we will most likely be seeing a general industrial, flex industrial type uses on the property, office, those types of uses that we feel provide employment and opportunities for the community.
Any transportation logistics?
Yeah, I think those would be uses that that would be interested in the property and are interested in the property. Obviously this particular request is not a rezoning. When we do file the rezoning application, we'll certainly go into more detail. Obviously we want, our desires have the majority of our traffic to access from Route 1. We feel like that's the right, the right access point. We don't, we're not anticipating having our traffic, or the majority of our traffic on Jericho Road. Our traffic, we feel like belongs accessing via Route 1. So that's what we'll be working towards, and what you'll see in the rezoning. And then, obviously we're going to be incorporating a number of design standards, a pattern book, a lot of detail around what the development's going to look like. Obviously, with a project of this size, we can't say, exactly, who's going to be there and when they're going to be there. But what we can say is, via proper is what things are going to look like, how the project will be developed, protecting the environmental features of the property, protecting, as much of the buffering ourselves against, the neighboring uses that aren't compatible with ours, so, or wouldn't be compatible with ours. So that'll obviously be incorporated into the rezoning request.
Okay.
Just one question. I live about 6 miles from your operation down there on 301. That's as the crow flies. Are you guys doing any blasting or anything down there? I never hear a peep out of you.
Good. I'm glad, but no, we don't blast there. It's a sand and gravel operation, so we're just extracting. We're digging as opposed to blasting. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, anyone else have any questions? All right. Is there a motion to authorize a public hearing?
I would authorize a public hearing on this application.
Second it.
Motion by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Dr. Horton and Mr. Williams. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Hughes? Yeah, you can remain seated, sir. You're authorized to set up a public hearing on this matter whenever is convenient.
You want to get up anyhow.
I know it.
So one thing two things I want to state here is, one is the applicant has indicated that there won't be any mining operation as a part of their rezoning application.
Yes, sir.
So I want to get that out there. And then secondly, the public hearing would be sometime after the applicant holds their community meeting. So.
Good. Whenever they are ready, we'll be ready.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, any and all matters? There are none. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting until our April meeting.
April 25th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. There's a second by everyone. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation tonight.
Happy